Happy Wednesday, everyone. I am Tiffany Service Gustafson, a digital strategist with BWG Connect, and we are a network and knowledge sharing group. We stay on top of the latest trends, challenges, whatever shaping the digital landscape. We want to know and talk about it. We'll do hundreds of these webinars a year due with the increase in demand to better understand the digital space. And we'll also do at least 100 in-person small format dinners. So if you happen to live in a tier 1 city in the US, feel free to check out our website, bwgconnect.com. Feel free to fill in a form there, or you can always reach out to us for an invite. We'd love to have you. The table is usually 15 to 20 people having a digital discussion, and is always a fantastic time. We spend the majority of our time talking to brands. That's how we stay on top of the latest trends. I'd love to have a conversation with you, so feel free to drop me an email at Tiffany, Tiffany, at bwgconnect.com. It's from these conversations we generate the topic ideas we know people want to learn about, and it's also where we gain our resident experts, such as Blue Wheel, who's with us today. Anybody we ask to teach our community has come highly recommended from multiple brands within our network. So if you ever need any recommendations within the space, feel free to reach out, and we'd love to give you a list of the best of the best. A few housekeeping items before we get started. The most important, we want this to be fun, educational, conversational. So drop those questions, comments into the Q&A, and we will get to them as we move along. We are starting here a few minutes after the hour, but rest assured, we're going to wrap up before that 60-minute mark to give you ample time to get to wherever you need to go next. So with that, let's jump into it and talk about the future of Amazon Discovery, the AMC reports that reveal how AI is changing. The team at Blue Wheel are awesome friends, long-term partners of the BWG community. So I'm going to kick it over to our panelist, Nikki. If you can give a brief introduction on yourself, that would be lovely, and then we'll jump right in. Thank you all for joining.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tiffany. My name is Nikki Pickens. I'm the Client Services Director here at Blue Wheel over Marketplace. I've actually spent over 10 years on both the brand and the agency sides of e-commerce. A lot of my time has been spent living inside of Amazon. I've touched other retailers as well, but I always come back to Amazon. So I'm really looking forward to having this conversation with you guys today.
Excellent. And friendly reminder, questions, comments into the Q&A bar.
All right, so now we can kind of chat about where we're headed during this call. So we'll start with what's actually changing in shopper behavior and the numbers behind it. Then we'll get into why the reporting that we've all kind of relied on for the past few years can't necessarily explain what we're currently seeing. And then the big part of this call today is really around the 5 AMC reports that help to answer the big question, is my traffic decline a demand problem, or did discovery just move somewhere that I can't see? From there, we'll look at organic, paid, and AI visibility, how they feed into each other, and then we'll wrap everything up by pulling it all into one measurement strategy moving forward. All right, so we will start here. We're going to start with what's changed. The short version is that shoppers have fundamentally changed how they find products on Amazon, and the data that we use to kind of understand that hasn't necessarily caught up with how that change is affecting us. So here's the overall scale of what's happening. These numbers actually come from Amazon's own earning calls, but 250 million customers used Amazon's AI shopping assistant in 2025. So monthly active users grew 140% year over year, and interactions grew 210%. So this is no longer a niche feature anymore. It's really mainstream shopping behavior. The number that's really interesting, though, is that shoppers who engage with the assistant, they convert at roughly 3.5 times the rate of everyone else. And that's around 36% versus 10%. Amazon says that those shoppers are 60% more likely to complete a purchase, which is why they're projecting over $10 billion in incremental annual sales from it. So that usage of the AI assistants, that's not necessarily spread evenly across the year or throughout the year. It really does concentrate around the big shopping events, so those big tentpole events. On Black Friday, AI-assisted sessions hit roughly 40% of all shopping sessions, and that was up from a baseline in the high 20s just a month earlier. And then when people are in deal hunting mode, they really lean into the assistant. And we saw that exact same pattern play out during Prime Day this year with some of our own clients. We'll touch on that as we get a little bit later when we dive into sponsored prompts, which is another new feature that's kind of utilizing these tools.
And just for clarification, is it Rufus or Alexa or both?
So it used to be Rufus, and then
Oh,
Amazon changed it, and now it's Alexa. So it launched as Rufus, and then they folded into Alexa for shopping and Alexa Plus. So now it's just one AI shopping experience across the app, the desktop, and the Echo devices. So if you hear people say Rufus, it's the same thing. The name has just changed.
got it. Super helpful.
All right. So the assistant is only one of basically three AI layers that's reshaping discovery. So you can think of it in three parts. So Alexa is the interface, the thing that shoppers actually talk to. Cosmo is the ranking engine behind the scenes. It's Amazon's semantic engine that decides organic relevance, and it thinks in meaning and context, not keyword matching. And then there's everything else that's outside of Amazon. So that's ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude. What we're seeing is that a growing share of shoppers start their product research in those tools before they ever even open Amazon. And we know that this is only going to continue to grow. The expectation is that within 4 years, an estimated 25% of global e commerce sales will be enabled by AI agents, and 55% of online shoppers will begin product research on LLM platforms. So, just to clarify this, that doesn't mean that AI is completely replacing search. It absolutely isn't. 77% of buyers use AI and traditional search together. So it's really just an added layer in the journey, but it's a layer that a lot of us just don't have a lot of visibility into. So that brings us to a pattern that a lot of different people are seeing across our client base, and just confirmed by overall industry data. We're seeing the same shape over and over. We're seeing impressions and glance views trending down, while click through and conversion rates trend up. And sometimes you'll even see your sales just holding steady, even though you're seeing your impressions and glance views going down. So here's why we think that happens. The research phase of shopping used to happen on your product pages. So a shopper would open 8 or 10 listings, compare, read reviews, go back and forth. Every one of those visits was a glance view. Now, a big chunk of that comparison actually happens inside the assistant. So the shopper asks questions, narrows down, and by the time they land on the product page, they've often already made their decision on what they're going to purchase because they chatted about it with Alexa. So that actually means that that's fewer page views per purchase. But the shoppers who do arrive are pre-qualified. So Alexa is now estimated to mediate 15 to 20% of mobile shopper queries, and that number is only continuing to climb. So another call out here, obviously not everyone's chart is going to look like this one. Some of you may be seeing both traffic and sales decline, and that doesn't automatically mean it's a demand problem. It could be demand. It could be an AI visibility problem where the assistant is recommending competitors instead of you. And honestly, it's usually a mix of both of those pieces. So the point of this slide isn't that sales isn't that sales always hold. It's that traffic and sales have become disconnected, and you can no longer just read one from the other. So that really just kind of leads to the bottom line of this entire first section. Traffic-based reporting alone can no longer tell you whether you're winning or losing.
How does it go in with thinking about product detail pages? Do brands have to think about that differently?
Yes, absolutely. And we'll touch on that a bit, but
Okay.
before, because of how everything is kind of shifting, your product detail page is really where you wanted to just make sure all of those top keywords were on that PDP. So you would want to do, and this is from ages ago when everyone was keyword stuffing their titles. It's like we have to get all of those keywords now in that title. Now that's been pulled back, and people are like, well, we want to make sure that those keywords are in the description or are in your bullets. That still is the case. But because of how AI is changing things, your content is now focusing on the questions that customers are asking. So you have to make sure that you're thinking of what are they asking, and is that answered within my PDP? So it's really a big content shift.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and we'll dive into the next section. So if shopper behavior has changed, one of the questions is why can't our reports explain that? And it's because the dashboards were originally built to kind of answer what happened and not really answer why it happened. So when we look at just how the standard reporting was built, whether it's in Vendor Central or Seller Central or in the ad console, it's last touch attribution, and it's siloed by ad type, and it's aggregated. So it shows you the campaign totals and not necessarily the customer journeys. And when you think of glance views specifically, they were designed as a proxy for demand back when every purchase required a page visit. So that assumption is now broken. Meanwhile, on the attribution side, the attribution gaps keep widening because an Alexa recommendation or a ChatGPT answer influences a purchase without leaving a clean footprint anywhere in your reports that you can just pull from Vendor Central. So that result is something that I'm hearing from my brands all the time. Traffic decline in one report, you may see stable sales or growing sales in another, and you really want to understand how you can kind of connect those two. So this shows how the shopper journey has shifted. So this is what a typical 2026 journey actually looks like. A shopper discovers a product category on social. They may validate it through an AI assistant. They compare options inside Alexa, and then they'll purchase it on Amazon. So your standard reports can basically only capture one of those 4 steps, and that's the very last one. And paid and organic have blurred together in a way that last click reporting just can't necessarily handle that. An ad someone saw 3 weeks ago can shape what the assistant recommends to them today. Because that exposure fed engagement signals into the system, last click gives that ad 0 credit. So they'll click it, the signal will go into the system, but that credit still doesn't go to the ad because there were so many steps in between. So we're all making budget decisions kind of not with that complete picture. So this is the gap that Amazon Marketing Cloud was really built to close. So most of you guys know AMC, so I'll kind of keep this high level, but your standard reports give you aggregated totals, while AMC gives you anonymized event level data. So instead of seeing that a campaign got 10,000 clicks, you can see how shoppers actually moved across every touch point on the way to a purchase with paid, organic, and DSP all connected in one place. And that's what makes kind of all of these reports in the next section possible.
And does a brand have to run DSP to use AMC?
So not anymore. When it first launched, you did have to have DSP. So everyone was like, okay, well, if I don't run DSP, I can't use it. Now you need either sponsored ads or DSP because Amazon did open it to sponsored ads only advertisers a while back. You can get your best analyses from combining both, but if you only have sponsored ads, that's completely fine. You can utilize AMC.
Well, that's good news.
Yes.
That was always a hurdle that we heard a lot about.
It was. And I find that a lot of people don't necessarily know that you can use it. And they're just like, oh, well, how can I? And absolutely use it. You just want to make sure that you actually have a decent amount of ad spend. If ads hasn't necessarily been your focus, you may not get that full AMC experience, but if it has, it's going to be beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so now we'll get into the reports. So these 5 reports that I'm going to go over, they can do a lot more than what we'll actually be covering today, but we picked them because using them together, they can help answer the question, is my traffic decline real demand erosion, or did discovery move somewhere I can't see it? One important update before we jump into those is 2 of the 5 reports actually run on premium Amazon data sets. So that's Flexible Shopping Insights and Amazon retail purchases. They actually used to require a paid subscription, and they're free for the rest of the year. So something to keep in mind is you guys should absolutely be using these while they're free. All right, and then here are the reports, just kind of like at a high level view. And the way that I'd like to think about these is by what each one tells you. So does the glance view story check out? Is the shopper journey compressing? Is brand intent holding? Can new customers still find you? And how does today's demand compare to the years before AI shopping existed? So you can think of these as a diagnostic toolkit. Each one isolates a different signal. And then together, they'll help you tell a complete story about what's really happening in your overall account. Okay, so we will start with the first report. So this one is more of like the core diagnostic, and it runs on the flexible shopping insight data set that I mentioned previously. So this one's currently free. What makes this one special is that standard AMC data is anchored to advertising. So every insight starts from an ad impression or a click. Flexible shopping insights breaks that constraint. So it actually services shopper behavior, detailed page views, add to carts, and purchases for both ad attributed customers and fully organic shoppers who never touched an ad over a rolling 12-month window. So it's one of the only places in AMC where you can see the organic funnel before the purchase, the browsing, and the add to cart behavior, and not just the transactions. So that's what makes this basically the first thing that we pull when a client flags or if we see an overall traffic decline. The read kind of works like if organic detailed page views are falling, but organic purchases are holding, your shoppers are still buying, which points toward the research happening inside of AI instead of on your product page. It doesn't necessarily prove it on its own, but it is a strong signal that discovery moved rather than you've completely lost that demand. If organic purchases are falling right alongside those views, that leans the other way toward it being a real demand or visibility problem worth you kind of diving into, maybe updating your content. That's why we start here, because it gives you kind of that working theory, that working hypothesis. And then the next 4 reports can help you test that hypothesis. So the next report is path to conversion. So this actually maps the sequence of ad exposures across every ad type you run that leads to each purchase, including how many touch points the journey took. So it's not only the ads, but also the touch point that the journey took and how long it lasted from first exposure to conversion. So normally brands would use this to justify their overall media mix, but in the context for today's conversation, it really becomes a journey diagnosis. So when shoppers do their research inside the assistant, that measurable path gets shorter. So if you compare your path links year over year, you'll be able to see kind of how your journeys have shifted. So if journeys that used to take 5 or more touches are now converting in 1 or 2, and your conversion rate is rising at the same time, that's a sign that that research phase may have moved into AI. It also backs up the pre-qualified shopper idea that we've been talking about, how they convert higher and you're going to get that purchase if they kind of start within that AI assistant. So that's backing it up with your own data. There is a budget risk hiding in that pattern though. In a compressed journey, the final bottom funnel ad may just be catching a shopper who already made their decision inside the assistant. And then your last touch reporting is going to hand it full credit anyway. So really the move here is to look at which exposure points still consistently show up in compressed paths and then weight your budget there rather than over crediting that last click. So really the call out here is looking at your year over year data and then comparing those differences now that AI has kind of taken over.
We do have a question regarding the reports. Is your team able to provide the queries that surface the reports and charts being shown throughout this presentation?
So what's actually really nice about these, and I feel like that's also something that makes people nervous about AMC, is like, oh, do I have to know SQL? Most of these reports you can actually pull. So if you log into the ad console, most of these reports are already readily available. There's also a instructional query that you can also pull from, but you will not need to know SQL for these, but we're always happy to kind of help you get these reports.
Good question.
Did I go over this last one? Oh, I did.
So yes, that was when we just finished.
Okay, perfect. Great. So now I will go to the next one. So now we are on to the ad attributed branded searches. So this is the third report. This measures branded search activity. So that's people typing your brand name into Amazon following ad exposure. So it shows whether your upper funnel media is driving shoppers to seek you out by name. So this matters for the AI conversation because branded search is one of the few demand signals that stays visible no matter where the research happens. So when someone gets a branded recommendation from Alexa or ChatGPT, wherever, even a best of list, they often show up on Amazon as a branded search rather than a category browse. So you'll want to watch that pattern. If branded searches are holding or rising while your category glance views fall, that actually suggests awareness and intent are still there, but the middle of your funnel just became harder to see. And then if branded searches are falling along with everything else, that may mean fewer shoppers are actually being pointed your way in this overall like AI driven discovery. And that's when you'll want to dive into your visibility and your content.
And how is it different for a brand watching like the branded search volume in what is it, brand analytics versus this?
So very
Or is that
similar.
different?
It is similar. So brand analytics that you can access, that shows you total branded search volume, which is very helpful. But the AMC version, that actually connects branded searches to prior ad exposure at the event level. So then you can see which media is actually creating that intent, not just that it exists. So if you just want to see that the intent exists, go to brand analytics. But if you want to actually know which media is actually creating that intent, that's when you're going to use this report.
Very helpful.
And then jumping into new to brand, I feel like new to brand, if anyone uses a report, I feel like a lot of people will use the new to brand analysis. So basically, AMC will let you compare new to brand behavior across ad types, products, and attribution windows. So a customer counts as new to brand if they haven't purchased from you in the prior 365 days. So I think of this one as more of a discovery health check. Your repeat buyers, they already know you. They'll search your brand name directly, no matter what AI does. Your new customers are the ones who really depend on discovery services to find you. So they're likely to feel the AI shift first. One pattern that's worth paying close attention to here is stable sales with a declining new to brand rate. So it can mean today's revenue is coming from your existing customers while fewer new ones are finding you. And that's easy to miss because the top line overall, it looks fine. So that's why you'll want to dive into this, especially if you're focused on growing new to brand. On the flip side, if your new to brand rate is holding steady alongside a traffic decline, that suggests that new customers are still finding you, just through paths that you can't necessarily see as easily. So you'll want to track new to brand rate as a leading indicator, not just a media KPI, and then treat a declining trend as a good reason to audit your content readiness, which we'll cover later. I know we keep kind of alluding to content, but we'll touch on that. All right. And then jumping into the last report. So this is demand baseline, and this is also included in the newly free data set. So this is with Amazon retail purchases. So ARP is Amazon's own transaction data. It captures every purchase of your ASINs, whether or not an ad was involved, and inside AMC, you can actually analyze it at the event level and then join it with your advertising data. So the headline feature here is really the look back. You actually have up to 5 years of purchase history, which is great. And a lot of people really like this, and a lot of people don't have access to it because typically you have to pay for it. But again, it's currently free. So the way that we use it is that, so we kind of read it as unique buyers against glance views. So the look back lets you see how many unique buyers you had in the years before AI shopping took off, and then you can compare that to today. So if glance views are down, but your unique buyers are holding steady against those years, that suggests people haven't stopped buying. They've just changed how they're getting to that purchase. If unique buyers are down too, that actually points to a demand issue. And the next step is looking at visibility and competition. So the move here, it's pretty simple, but it is urgent. You definitely want to establish your baseline now. So you want to start pulling these AMC reports. You want to know what your baseline is in the previous years, especially ahead of the next tentpole event, so that every time you're having this traffic conversation, you can start with your existing baseline and then compare it to what you're seeing now. So it's really starting from those transactions instead of page views, since we know that the page views are telling a different story. And then we've got
with reporting. Mm-hmm. How far back can you go with reporting for AMC?
So With the one that I just mentioned, you can go back 5 years. That's basically the report that gives you, yeah, it's a decent amount of time, but that's the report that typically isn't free. So if we want to have that data now, get it now while it's still free. It should be free for the rest of the year. I don't believe they've said how long it's going to be. So get it now while you actually can. But even if they do start charging for it again, yeah, even if they do start charging for it again, you can have that 5-year look back.
Yeah, so download it now, call to action while it's free. Get those 5 years of data to create your baseline to do after this call.
Exactly. All right. And something else that I have included kind of as a bonus, because this is not an AMC report, but here at Blue Will, we have completely fallen in love with sponsored prompts. Basically, everything that we covered, it helps you measure around the AI shift. And sponsored prompts is really the first tool that gives you visibility into the AI conversation itself. So what they are, it's sponsored products and sponsored brands prompts. They're AI-powered conversational ads. So you can see them in shopping results and on product detail pages. And when a shopper clicks one, it either opens a dialogue with Alexa for shopping or answers their question right on the page. So Amazon launched these in open beta last year, around the end of the year, and they took them into general availability in the US this year. So a few things to know: eligible campaigns, they are auto-enrolled, and then clicks bill at your existing CPC. And then Amazon actually writes the prompt copy itself, so you don't have to write these. So this is why it is very, very important to keep your content updated. Amazon is building these prompts from your detail pages, the A+ content, the brand store, and your reviews, and you can't preview or approve that copy. You only see a prompt after it's received a click, and then your only lever at that point is pausing it. So if your listing has any outdated claims, vague language, missing specs, anything, that's material that the AI will actually be working with, and it's now attached to your paid placements. So accurate, complete, current content is what keeps the AI, saying the right things about your products. The early numbers here, though, are very promising. So about 20% of shoppers who engage a prompt, they keep the conversation going about the brand. And adding prompts to a sponsored brand's ad drives around a 6% lift in conversions. And honestly, the performance isn't even the most valuable part. The prompts report in the ad console gives you prompt level data on what shoppers are actually asking. So kind of for the first time, the questions that people are asking AI about your products is actually visible to you. So while we're seeing that the search bar is kind of going quiet now, the prompts let us hear what we're missing in the search bar.
Ivy, what a fantastic opportunity for organizational alignment. Because I envision you're getting that information now, you can share it with quality control, product development, your sales team, your marketing team, customer service, and obviously then use that information to update your product detail page.
Exactly. So it's beneficial. Exactly. It's beneficial across so many teams. So many teams can use this information. And honestly, it's such an easy pool that there's no reason for everyone to not be using this.
We have a couple questions here. How much do you need to be investing quarterly for AMC to give robust data?
Oh, that is a good question.
It's a good question.
I don't necessarily have a specific number. I will say that, I've seen brands utilizing AMC, and let's say they're investing, might have sponsored ads and they're investing $30,000 quarterly. Let's say that. You're still going to get a benefit, especially if those ads have been running for quite some time. You're going to get a benefit. Now, if you're investing, $500 quarterly, you may not still get that added benefit. But I also don't want you to limit yourself based on what you're investing, because if you're investing something, AMC is still there. You're still getting that data. It may not tell the complete story, but at least start using that data. So obviously, you're going to get a really good performance if you are investing a little bit more, but I don't want that to hold you back from utilizing AMC.
Good call out. And then, do you know how much traffic or clicks is being generated by prompts versus other traffic sources?
So actually, that is kind of going into it on this slide.
Oh,
So we have
perfect time.
an example of kind of what we have
Thanks,
seen.
Sam.
So this will show you clicks and orders that we're seeing. Now, what's really nice about this is for this client, they'd already, we've already had the sponsors prompts running, but we wanted to compare what we saw versus Prime Day. So this is actually what it looked like for a client during Prime Day this year versus a baseline week. So unique prompts were actually up 812%. Prompt impressions were up over 10,000%. Clicks were up over 2,200%. And then prompt orders were up 827%. So AI assisted shopping, it concentrates heavily around tentpole events. And this is where your shoppers are during the moments that matter most. So when we were looking at it during the baseline week, we were seeing participation, not as much, but it exploded during tent poles. So I wouldn't necessarily think that this is something where it, obviously it's helpful that it's always there, but looking at it for like your everyday, you may not get a lot of knowledge from there. Where you're going to get your knowledge is during tentpole events, because that's when everyone is on there. A lot of people are using it. So that's when it's really beneficial to kind of look at that data. And what we did here, and this kind of is what Tiffany was talking about, is we actually pulled two lists. So we pulled the highest earning prompts and the prompts that didn't convert. So the highest earners, they show you which questions and claims actually drive purchase. And then whatever those turn out to be for your products, we validate that. Our content team leans into that. And then we hand them to the search team as new keyword and campaign targets. So it's all real shopper language, and it's straight from that AI conversation. And then with the non-converting prompts, those actually might even be a bit more valuable, because when shoppers repeatedly ask the same question and then don't buy, that tells you your listing isn't answering it convincingly. So that's not a media problem, that's a content gap. And those questions go straight into the content roadmap. So bullets, A+ content, imagery, and it all just feeds itself. So prompt data shows you what shoppers are asking AI. You update your content to answer it, and then better answers can lift both your prompt performance and your AI, your organic AI recommendations, because it's the same content that's feeding all of those systems.
I mean, that is so exciting. The prompts that didn't convert, I just envision taking that to your product development team or quality control and be like, this is where we could do better with our product too, perhaps.
Exactly. And it's
That
an opportunity.
otherwise more of like a gut feeling, or you didn't have data around the why you want to update something.
Exactly. It's an opportunity for, could be for product development. Like, we're seeing these people asking this product does not fix that. Is this something that we need to create? And you can see how many people are asking that question.
And you have the data to prove it. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Another
Yeah.
question around this is, how important is the duration of ads? And this is a great question, because I used to work with ceiling fans, so there was seasonality with this. So this person is asking as well, they have seasonality with their product, and does that interfere with the effectiveness?
Well, I feel like in the seasonality sense, that's something that you can't necessarily control. So that's not something that you should worry about. But even outside of this broader conversation, obviously, the longer the ads have run, just in general, it is better. But if you are seasonal and this is something that you're launching a new campaign, maybe it's a campaign that you could pause and then you kind of reactivate it as that season comes in. That will affect it a bit, but you're still going to get helpful information there.
Mm-hmm. That's where the baseline information, very important. Download those reports.
All right, so now we will jump into the next section. So we've now kind of helped you to diagnose the overall problem and covered some of the tools that you can use. We'll want to take kind of a step back here. So in an AI-driven marketplace, paid, organic, and AI recommended visibility, none of those pieces are separate lanes anymore. So they're all now one interconnected system. So there's now three forces that decide your overall visibility. So we've kind of touched on this. On the organic side, there's Cosmo, and that ranks you based on your product page content, your semantic signals, and then the external proof, meaning it evaluates whether your content genuinely answers shopper intent, not whether you stuffed the right keywords. On the paid side, media has become signal fuel. So your ads drive the engagement and conversion data that Cosmo reads when deciding how to rank you organically. So paid doesn't just buy placements anymore, it also feeds your organic engine. And then the third force, it's the one that we really haven't we don't really understand right now. It's external content is now AI training data. So that is every single thing: reviews, editorial coverage, best of lists, your own website, all of that, Reddit, all of it teaches the AI what to recommend. So what I'd really like to remind you, and just I'd like you to just kind of think about this as you're thinking about your content. Press coverage from 2023 is influencing what Alexa recommends in 2026. So that means media strategy, content strategy, and off Amazon presence can no longer be planned separately. It really is all one visibility system now. And I wanted to show you an example of kind of how this looks in practice. So this is an example from a product where on the left, it is the original detail page before we kind of rewrote the listing to work for both AI and human search. And you can see a huge difference in that score. The score on the left was a 2. The score on the left or on the right went up to 60. And basically, the framework behind all of that is 4 questions. So, can the assistant answer from your content alone? Like the 4 questions that it can answer. Who is this for? How is it used? What does it solve? And then what does it pair with? You want to think of specific questions as you are kind of refreshing your listings. So when we audit listings against those 4 questions, a lot of times the listings completely fail. So the basics are there. You are answering those basic questions. You'll see product function, category, and things like that. But the contextual layers that AI needs, so use cases, compatibility, comparisons, all of those are typically missing. So an assistant that can't answer that shopper's question from your content, it will not be recommending you. Even if you are absolutely a category leader, it's not going to recommend you. It's going to recommend a competitor that maybe has updated their content there. So what you're seeing here is actually scoring that comes from something that we call an AI retail readiness report. If you're ever curious on, what your own listings would score, you can always send a follow-up email with 2 ASINs. We're happy to put that together for you. No charge at all. And, we can kind of walk you through some of those findings. Because it's a great place to start. I feel like people are always surprised with what their score is.
And to be able to pull that, and that's amazing. So definitely take advantage of that. Super cool. We have quite a few questions. You want to take pause and get through these? And they're great questions. Keep them coming. Does the prompt report only include if the prompt was sponsored, or does it also include any organic questions that people are asking?
It's only sponsored. So it's what is going to be on that campaign. So it will just be those sponsored prompts. And it's whatever Amazon creates. That's something to remember. It's what Amazon creates.
Got it. That is helpful. And then where is the prompt reporting in advertising?
So that will be within the ads console. Actually, we can send over an example afterwards. I think that'll be helpful to just kind of show where you could find it, but it is within the regular ads console.
Okay. Perfect. So we'll do that in follow-up of that. And then is it fair to say that brands that are able to drive a ton of desirability are immune to being dependent on Amazon for visibility?
Oh, well, I kind of almost have a question for you on how are these brands driving that desirability? Because I don't think that they're immune, because I've seen brands now that are huge, massive brands. Everyone knows them, and they're still struggling with this because that content has not been updated. So even if you are a well-known brand and you do have that desirability, you have to make sure that the content that you currently have is AI ready, because that's how you get lost. If it's not answering the questions that ChatGPT or Alexa is answering, it doesn't matter how desirable you are. You're not going to be found there.
Good call out. Awesome questions. Thank you.
All right. So we will jump into the next section. So now we're going to talk about how to pull kind of all of this into one measurement strategy. So one system instead of just several disconnected dashboards. So this framework, kind of like everything that I've gone over, has three parts. So you'll want to monitor discovery. So your traffic, the questions showing up in your prompts report, and your presence in AI recommendations. From there, you'll want to measure through AMC with the reports that we walked through. So organic and paid view, conversion paths, branded searches, new to brand, and then your demand baseline that you really have to set. And then you'll want to evaluate outcomes on customer value and not just attributed ROAS. So we really want you guys to get away from looking at your typical KPIs and really reframing the KPI conversation with your teams and your leadership. Conversion rate, new to brand, and long-term customer value now matter more than just looking at your raw glance views. So the single most actionable thing that you can do this quarter is really just establish your AMC baseline now before your next tentpole event, so that you're measuring any kind of future shifts against, the real data instead of guessing what's happening. And then we also kind of want to show what separates the brands that are ahead on this. So these brands are running AMC constantly. They're always pulling these reports. And then, within that decision environment, that kind of helps your budget conversations and your content calls. And that's just running that constantly instead of doing a quarterly report or like every 6 months. I mean, I know a lot of people who still aren't even pulling AMC at this point. And what we really want to stress here is that this is something that you should be doing at minimum monthly, to be pulling these reports and having these conversations across budgets, across content, just to make sure that you're actually making educated decisions. They also treat content as an infrastructure. So it's structured attributes, question coverage. A+ content is being built for machines and humans at the same time. They'll also invest full funnel because the data proves multi-touch point exposure multiplies conversion. And they activate what they learn through AMC audiences in DSP. So based on what you're finding in AMC, you can push those audiences into DSP, and you're able to use DSP because you're investing full funnelly. And then from there, you can build external authority, deliberately. And that's with your reviews, with your editorials, aggregator presence. So just make sure that you're thinking of, how are we being seen off of Amazon? You can't just focus on Amazon. You have to focus on everything outside of that as well, just to make sure you're covering all of your AI visibility. Because while you do want Alexa to pick you up, you want all of the other LLMs to pick you up as well.
And I think it's safe to say, right, that a competitive advantage would be the organizational alignment with the brands that are doing it right. And who are the players in the room? Like, what teams should be collaborating with this data?
And it's so funny because there's so many teams that we now are pulling in with this data. It really isn't just, okay, let me just talk to my main point of contact, we're going to share this. No, it's across ads, it's across content. We want to share this with your leadership because you're going to be telling a completely different story to your leadership. A lot of times leadership will just be like, or glance user down, I don't want to hear anything else. No, there's several other pieces that you have to keep in mind. So it's really kind of bringing everyone together in that room.
I love that. That right there, that's success, right? To break down those walls and barriers and those silos between the different departments is fantastic.
Exactly.
One more question when it comes to content. How frequently does content need to be refreshed?
So this is actually a question that I recently received from a client. So right now, with a lot of our clients, we're going through massive refreshes on content due to AI readiness. And the question that I received is, when are we going to have to do this again? Is this something that I'm going to have to update, next month? And honestly, it's a hard question to answer because of how fast everything is changing. So the reason why it's so nice to work with an agency partner is that, like, we know when these changes are coming, we know when we have to update it. For example, Amazon just threw out that now your titles can't be above 75 characters. We know that. We're like, okay, we're going to hurry up and action this. For now, I would say, we can look at quarterly refreshes. We can look at every 6 months refreshes. But if AI keeps changing like it is, there's a chance you're going to have to change it again. And the important part of this is just staying on top of it. So you need to do the original refresh, the first start of the refresh of making sure that you're AI ready, but also keep in mind, if some new crazy update comes out and we find out something differently, you might have to update it again. So I really think that content right now has just stepped to the forefront of importance. I think that it's very easy to forget about content, and you absolutely cannot at this time.
Mm-hmm. Too many moving parts.
Way too many. Way too many. I mean, Tiffany, you and I were talking before this call, and we were talking about how different Amazon is from 2012 to now. And now with AI, things are changing year over year. So just keep that in mind with your content. Right now, there's probably going to be a decent amount of refreshes. We don't necessarily have a set time of how often we need to update this, but we do know that if your content is not AI ready right now, you have to do it now.
Mm-hmm. Awesome call out.
All right. So we can wrap up with just the overall main takeaways here. So AI has just fundamentally changed how shoppers discover products on Amazon and before they ever even get to Amazon. The 5 AMC reports that we covered, they help you turn those invisible journeys into decisions, and they help you answer the demand versus AI question with data instead of guesswork. You'll also be able to evaluate visibility beyond glance views, because conversion, new to brand rate, and recommendation share are your real health metrics as you move forward. And I keep saying this, but you'll want to establish your AMC baseline now while the premium data sets are free to really just protect your measurement, your media efficiency, and your long-term growth.
I believe yes. So can we get access to the slides after this session?
Oh, yes, definitely.
All right, so we'll definitely do that. We'll be following up with the slides. A couple more questions here before we wrap up. Are there specific product categories that you're seeing AI is having the biggest impact on right now?
Actually, I pulled a report recently, and I want to say, and we can include this as well. I want to say that it was CPG that had the largest impact of how many people were actually using it, which I feel like makes sense. But we're seeing it across the board. We are truly seeing it across the board. But I want to say that was the top category.
And I'm going to put you on the spot for closing remarks here. So let's fast forward 12, 24 months. How do you see the shopping experience on Amazon?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think that the shopping experience will be very different. It's funny, recently I was chatting with someone and they actually asked me if I use Alexa when, within the AI tool. And I was like, I don't. But I fail to believe that will not be the case in a year, because what was it? 2 years ago, I remember people were talking about ChatGPT and I was just like, how do I get to that? Like, is this a website? Like, what is this? And now I literally cannot live without it. So I think in a year, it's going to be a completely different landscape. Yes, right now we may not be using or interacting with Alexa, on Amazon. I do not believe that will be the case in the year. I think that we will all be shopping through LLMs. We're already seeing Amazon did a beta of where you could purchase like tickets or pizza, like all through the Alexa. That's how it's going to be. You're going to be able to make your purchases through LLM. So I think that the landscape will be very, very different in a year. And I'm kind of excited for it. I don't know. I mean, these changes can be a headache, but overall, it's making the customer experience so much easier. Now, it's not making our lives easier, but the customer experience easier.
I was going to say, like in retail, yeah, definitely not making our lives easier. But to see the change in the last 20, 25 years in retail is just unbelievable. And this is another one where I think great takeaway, just keep your finger on the pulse of all these changes with that product detail page, because as guilty as well is like once you've updated, like done, move on to something else, forget about it. And that is not the case right now, because there is way too many things being tested with AI that is pulling from that information to get you on the fast track to be successful. So very cool. Couple other call outs too. I just want to say we will be doing follow-up here post-event, playing encourage follow-up conversation with the Blue Wheel team. As Nikki said, they can do comp AI readiness reports on some SKUs. So we will follow up with information on that. If you'd like to take advantage, highly suggest you do. I think that's amazing. You'd be able to see that data, and that would be complimentary. The 5-year look back, get those reports, because having worked with Amazon, you don't know if they're going to pull it tomorrow. Like, who knows? Yeah, they say it's free now, and then you can log on and it's not. So go in and get those free reports. That's so critical to get that baseline, because that's where you're going to have to go off of. There's so many unknowns right now, and trying to piece it all together with that customer journey to have that baseline is critical. One more question here before we close. So if you're in the AMC platform, is there a tutorial or any sort of how-to on how to populate that information that we spoke about?
Actually, if you guys haven't done this, you should absolutely take the AMC training through the Ads Console. So you can do the Amazon Ads Academy. Not a lot of people, I mean, some people just don't think it's helpful. I think the AMC training is amazing. So if you go to the Amazon Ads Academy, there is a specific AMC section that will basically explain AMC, walk you through how you can kind of pull these reports. Of course, your agency partner can also help you with pulling the reports, but if there's another takeaway that I would say for everyone, do the AMC ads training through the Amazon Training Academy.
Do the training, which I'm assuming is complimentary.
Oh, yes, free. Yeah. I tell everyone, even my family, I'm like, if you guys don't understand it, do this training.
Do the training. Absolutely. If it's free, go for it. That's a great call out. Awesome. Nikki, thank you so much. Appreciate your expertise, everything you've brought to the table. I mean, we love Blue Wheel. We've been working with you guys for years. So we definitely encourage everybody on the call to have follow-up conversations with them. They're obviously amazing at what they do, and we'd love to have a conversation with you as well. That's how we get the content for our future events. So with that, it's a wrap, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Take care, and see you on another event soon with BWG. Peace. Thank you, Nikki.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.